Ex-wife cheated and left me on our 1-year anniversary. My story isn't recent, but I thought some people out there might enjoy it. Sorry for the length ahead of time. Back in 2017, I met my now ex-wife through a coworker and friend. I was 27M and she had just turned 24F. We hit it off quick and started dating after a few weeks. We were both very religious evangelical Christians, which made us move fast, but for the most part things were pretty good. She definitely showed some minor red flags at times while we were dating, but most of it was small stuff that could easily be addressed and talked through, so I didn't take them too seriously. We were pretty different in a lot of ways that weren't as apparent until we got married. We dated for a little over 7 months, got engaged, and 7 months after that we were married and enjoying our new lives together. After the wedding we had our honeymoon phase that all newlyweds have, but ours pretty quickly ended about 2 months in. Very quickly I started to notice that she was starting to control everything. We pretty much only did what she wanted to all the time, only listened to the music she wanted to, only watch movies and TV she wanted to, and only eat what she wanted to. As a then religious man, I would gladly do all of this for her to make her happy and show her that I love and care about her and only her. Then our sex life started taking a hit. Anytime I would communicate that I was either in the mood or it had been a while, she would tell me she wasn't in the mood, but she knew I wanted to and she felt pressured by me. The first time she told me this, I went out of my way to make it clear we didn't have to have sex if she didn't want to, but no matter what I said or how I said it, she would continue to tell me I was pressuring her into having sex. It started to affect me in a major way because I was running out of ways to express to my wife that I had the desire to be intimate with her, and I was constantly being told I was the problem. I became incredibly self-conscious as time went on, another thing she would criticize me for, that she was causing. It eventually became a lose-lose situation because if I initiated sex, I would get shut down immediately and told to stop pressuring her, and when she initiated sex, which was rare, it would end with her mad at me for not lasting long enough or criticizing me for not being able to get her off, which just created a negative feedback loop which has heavily affected me to this day still. I also started learning how aggressively political she was. She was a big lefty and vocal about it. She also was pretty into a lot of the social justice stuff, which is fine, but there's a general attitude that comes along with it, and she definitely had the attitude. I come from a pretty conservative family and held some conservative views because of my religion. She did too, but I have never been a politics person. It's something that tends to divide people far more than unify them, so I've always tried to stay out of politics as much as I possibly could. She would always talk bad about conservatives and say, in my opinion, radical shit about political figures. I would usually try to discuss it with a level head and gently ask her if she thinks she's being a little too harsh towards conservative politicians and people in general, to which she would usually get emotional and start becoming really aggressive about her political views. I would get uncomfortable and try to change the subject pretty quickly. Shortly before we got married, I had quit my job due to overworking and underpaying and started working for the company that she was working for. It was fun to be working together, and everyone started to know us as the married couple of the company. I thought it would be really fun to work together, but I quickly learned she did not think it was fun. I'm extremely social and a major extrovert, so I pretty much always try to socialize with my coworkers and make the environment fun for all of us. Pretty much everyone loved working with me except my wife. When she worked with other coworkers, she was glad to be social and have conversations with them, but when we were together she would criticize me for trying to have conversations with her while we were working because I was just distracting her. The job quickly became unenjoyable with her, so I decided I wanted to cut back my hours and pursue my dream of becoming a freelance illustrator. She was supportive, so I started working about half my usual hours and started taking as many freelance jobs I could find and having a decent start, but not making much money. To fill the gap in our income, she became a manager at the company we were working for, which increased her hours and responsibilities. Our diet was the next thing to go. She pretty much always wanted to stay home and order takeout for dinner, even if I had bought food to cook that evening. I was the cook in the relationship, and she seemed to be jealous of that, and so we usually didn't eat at home unless she wanted to cook something or I had already started cooking before she got home. We were eating worse and worse as time went on. I used to be pretty overweight in college and had lost over 40 pounds before we met, so I was pretty serious about my diet and exercise. However, with all of the shit we had been eating, I naturally started to put weight back on. I put on over 15 pounds in just a couple months, and she started to comment on it to my face. I started to feel very insecure and self-conscious and started pouring more time into my workouts and started cooking my own meals for me and picking up whatever she wanted for her. Of course, this became yet another thing she would complain about because she felt like I didn't want to eat meals with her, to which I caved and started eating the standard American diet again with her. Jumping ahead a bit, things continued to get worse. She would complain about and criticize everything I did, the amount of money I wasn't making from freelancing, my tendency to be forgetful about small things, and when we did have sex, she would harshly criticize my performance, and it often ended in her being mad. Sex, however, was very rare at this point, having sex about maybe once every other month. I was incredibly self-conscious and feeling like nothing I did for her was ever enough, because it wasn't, even though I was constantly bending over backwards to make her happy. She had always struggled with depression since I knew her, and I figured that some of this behavior was stemming from that, so I started asking her if she wanted to try counseling, something I've been doing for about 6 to 7 years now, to try and help with it. She always talked about wanting to try it again after a bad experience she had, but when I would talk about it and how great it's been for me, she would say she didn't need it. I would also ask her if she would be interested in couples counseling since we were having quite a few issues and we could work on them together, but every time I would suggest it, she would turn the focus on me and tell me that I was the one that needed counseling, not her. Once we hit the 10-month mark, she came to me and told me she was no longer religious, which was heartbreaking for me at the time, but it wasn't the end of the world, and I knew it was difficult for her too. The day she told me was actually one of the best days we had had in a while. She saw how what she said hurt me, and she was very caring and empathetic while I told her that it was hard to hear but didn't affect my feeling towards her at all. We cried together, held each other, and told each other how much we loved each other, and even had pretty good sex that night. It seemed like this event had somehow changed things for the better in a weird way. Boy, was I wrong. The next day her demeanor changed completely. She went from being the sweet, caring, empathetic wife that cared about me to a cold, stern, and quite frankly heartless individual. All understanding and emotion that was there the night before was completely gone the next morning. She started saying things like, "This is who I am now and you need to be okay with it, and you need to figure out if you can live with this." Anytime I tried to talk about the situation from the night prior. At this point she was almost never home anymore. She would go to work in the morning and be gone until sun was down. I would attempt to try and make an effort to do kind things for her to show her I was thinking about her, like surprising her by bringing her dinner to work or check in every so often to see if I could do anything to make her day easier. Her texts became short, which I just assumed was because she was at work, and she made me feel like I was somehow bothering her by trying to do loving things for her. This is around the time she started hanging out with a coworker and friend of ours more, we'll call him Jerry. He lived on the same block that the business we worked for was on, and his place was the hangout/party pad for all the employees. It didn't bother me that they were hanging out more because I knew and trusted both of them, but my ex started coming home later and later telling me that she was going out to get drinks with him and a few other coworkers after closing up. She even ghosted me and my parents on a night we had planned to do dinner together to go out drinking with him. I was never invited or told about these hangouts. She started spending more time drinking with him and less time at home, which led me to not only have 2 part-time jobs but also be responsible for everything around the house we owned together. I did all the cleaning, cooking, laundry, mowing, dishes, home improvement, and shopping, on top of trying to stay on top of my workout schedule. We also had 2 dogs and 2 cats, which I took care of full-time. One night she came home late when we had plans for the evening. I cooked for her, and then we were going to go out, which were now ruined because of the time she got home, and told me that she was struggling with our relationship because I make her feel alone and don't listen to her enough. Like the cuck I was, I took full responsibility of the way I made her feel and told her I would do everything I could to fix the issue. I also suggested we go to couples counseling again, to which she refused. The couple months after, it seemed like things were on the upswing. She was more present and less easily agitated. I essentially just stopped caring about me completely and started doing everything she needed or wanted from me, and it seemed to be working even though I was fucking miserable at this point. It was exhausting. We went on vacation during this time to the UK for 2 weeks and had a pretty good time, even though she wanted to stay in the Airbnb half the time. But when we got back, her hours at work didn't change, and I noticed that she was starting to get into Jerry's music taste, something she never once done with me. She hated my music taste. Then everything climaxed on Halloween night. We went out with friends to celebrate and eventually split up because I had to work in the morning and she wanted to go to some dance party with our coworkers. I told her good night, have fun, and I'd see when she got home. She didn't come home that night. When I woke up the next morning and she wasn't there, I thought she drank too much and stayed with a friend, something she had done in the past before, so I texted her asking where she was and never got a response. I checked her location on my phone. It showed her phone was where she parked that night, which happened to be where we worked, so I knew she left her phone in the car. I start freaking out because if she doesn't have her phone, I can't figure out where she is or even get in touch with her, so I started texting everyone we were with that night and started asking if anyone saw where she went. After several hours of freaking out, a coworker texted me back and said the last time she saw her, she was at Jerry's apartment to wait on an Uber. She said she had offered to share her Uber with her, but my wife declined, saying she wanted to sober up and drive home instead. That was the last time anyone saw her. Hearing that made me go from panic to pissed. Why would she not accept a free Uber to get her home? And if she was last seen there, is she still there? Remember, I'm working maybe 200 feet away from this guy's apartment and my wife's car is parked right outside. She ends up texting me telling me she's home about an hour before I get off and she'll see me when I get home. So, wherever she was, she left, walked to her car where I'm inside working, doesn't come in to tell me she's okay or where she's been, and just drives home? None of it was sitting well with me at all. When I leave work, I assume she's hungover, so I decide to stop by the store to grab her favorite snack and some Pedialyte to help. As I'm walking into the store, she calls me and asks where I am. I tell her and she tells me to come home and talk to her. I ask if everything is okay and she says no, so I hang up and drive the longest drive home I've ever had, in panic mode the entire time. When I get there, she's sitting on the couch with a pouty face on. I sit next to her and ask what's going on. She told me that night she drank too much, stayed at Jerry's, slept with him in his bed and made out, but they didn't have sex. I stayed calm and told her she and him had lost all my trust, but that I wanted to work on forgiving her and try to work all of this out in couples counseling. When I said this, she said that the whole experience was positive because it made her realize how unhappy I make her and that she can no longer be with me. My stomach dropped. I had been pouring my entire life into this woman, doing everything I could to meet her needs and make her happy, but not a single bit of it was ever seen or even acknowledged. Nothing I could ever do would ever be enough for her. To wrap up quickly, we ended up splitting for the weekend. I stayed with my parents and her sister came down to stay with her for the weekend to help her process what she did, because she had done the same thing several times. After the weekend, we came back together and she told me her mind hadn't changed and she wanted a divorce. It was our 1-year anniversary the day she asked me for a divorce. Since then, I've learned she was having an emotional affair for months, and after all this happened, it became very physical and she left me for him but would never admit it to my face. I had to find out, though, our past co-workers. Sorry for the length. This is my first time telling this story, so I have a lot to say. This post is already very long, so I'll post the aftermath in another post soon with more details of that. To those thinking, how did you put up with this? It's not always easy to see this stuff in the moment, no matter how bad it is, and my past religious views kept me quite naive to a lot of what was going on. She was also very good at manipulating me to see myself as the problematic one. Now it's insanely clear to see, but back then I wanted it to work out so badly. TLDR, my ex-wife, who struggled with depression, emotionally abused, and manipulated me to bend over backwards for her to meet her needs and make her happy, but it was never enough. Then she ended up cheating on me with a friend and coworker and left me for him on the day or our 1-year anniversary.